What is geography? If you think about the place where you live, what does the land look like? Are there tall mountains nearby? Or is the land so flat that you can see for miles, like in western Oklahoma? Is the ground covered with bright green grass and trees, or is the area part of a sandy desert? Now think about the weather in your area. What is it like? Does it get really hot in the summer? Do you see snow every winter? How much does it rain? Do tornadoes ever strike? Finally, think about the people who live in your town or city. Do they live mostly in apartments or houses? Do most people own cars, or do they get around town on buses or trains? What kinds of jobs do adults in your town have? Were most of the people you know born in your town, or did they move there? The things that you have been thinking about are part of your area's geography. Geography is the study of the world, its people, and the landscapes they create. To a geographer, a place's landscape is all the human and physical features that make it unique. When they study the world's landscapes, geographers ask questions, much like the ones you just asked yourself. Geography as a science. Many of the questions that geographers ask deal with how much the world works. They want to know what causes mountains to form and what creates tornadoes. To answer questions like these, geographers have to think and act like scientists. As scientists, geographers do fieldwork to gather data or information about places. Gathering data can sometimes lead geographers to fascinating places. They might have to crawl deep into caves or climb tall mountains to make observations and take measurements. At other times, geographers study sets of images collected by satellites orbiting high above Earth. These scientists make observations about the places they study. Then they record these observations. However, geographers make observations and gather data. They have to study it really carefully. Like other scientists, geographers must examine their findings in great detail before they can learn what all the information means. These scientists interpret and summarize the data gathered. Then they can make their conclusions. Geography as a social science. Not everything that geographers study can be measured in numbers, however. Some geographers study people and their lives. For example, they may ask why countries change their governments, or why people in a place speak a certain language. This kind of information cannot be measured. Because it deals with people and how they live, geography is sometimes called a social science. A social science is a field that studies people and the relationships among them. The geographers who study people do not dig in caves or climb mountains. Instead, they visit places and talk to people who live there. That is the field work they do to gather information about people's lives and communities. These geographers may design and conduct surveys to gather information. They also might record oral histories from what people tell them about their communities. Looking at the world. Whether they study volcanoes and storms or people and cities, geographers have to look carefully at the world around them. To fully understand how the world works, geographers often look at places at 3 different levels. The local level. Some geographers study issues at a local level. They ask the same type of questions they ask at the beginning of this module. How do people in a town or community live? What is the local government like? How do the people who live there get around? And what do they eat? By asking these questions, geographers can figure out why people live and work the way they do. They can also help people improve their lives. For example, they can help town leaders figure out the best place to build new schools, shopping centers, or sports complexes. They can also help the people who live in the city or town plan for the future. Regional level. Sometimes, though, geographers want to study a bigger chunk of the world. To do this, they divide the world into regions. A region is a part of the world that has one or more common feature that distinguish it from the surrounding areas. Some regions are defined by physical characteristics such as mountain ranges, climates, or plants native to the area. As a result, these type of regions are often easy to identify. The Rocky Mountains of the western United States, for example, make up a physical region. Another example of this kind of region is the Sahara, a huge desert in northern Africa. Other regions may not be so easy to define, however. These regions are based on the human characteristics of a place, such as language, religion, or history. A place in which most people share these kinds of characteristics can also be seen as a region. For example, most people in Scandinavia, a region in Northern Europe, speak similar languages and practice the same religion. Regions come in all shapes and sizes. Some are small, like the neighborhood called Chinatown in San Francisco. Other regions are huge, like the Americas. This huge region includes 2 continents, North America and South America. The area size does not matter, as long as the area shares some characteristics. These shared characteristics define the region. The characteristics that define regions can change over time. As a result, regions can also change. For example, some physical processes such as erosion, earthquakes, hurricanes, and droughts can change the nature of a place. A desert region could expand, or a forest region could lose most of its trees in a storm. Human processes can also change regions. People can move from one area to another, introducing new languages and customs. Populations can increase, resulting in the growth of cities or crowded conditions. People also change the physical environment of regions. For example, the people of Oman, a desert country, have built irrigation canals for thousands of years to make agriculture possible. Geographers divide the world into regions for many reasons. The world is a huge place and home to billions of people. Studying so large an area can be extremely difficult. Dividing the world into regions make it easier to study. A small area is much easier to examine than a large area. Other geographers study regions to see how people interact with one another. For example, they may study a city such as London, England, to learn how the city's people govern themselves. Then they can compare what they learn about one region to what they learn about another region. In this way, they can learn more about life and landscape in both places. Global level. Sometimes geographers do not want to study the world just at a regional level. Instead, they want to learn how people interact globally or around the world. To do so, geographers ask how events and ideas from one region of the world affect people in other regions. In other words, they study the world on a global level. Geographers who study the world on a global level try to find relationships among people who live far apart. They may, for example, examine the products that a country exports to see how those products are used in other countries. In recent decades, worldwide trade and communication have increased. As a result, we need to understand how our actions affect people around the world. Through their studies, geographers provide us with information that help us figure out how to live in a rapidly changing world. Summary and preview. Geography is the study of the world, its people, and its landscapes. In the next lesson, you will explore the branches into which the field is actually divided.